So just bear with me, just follow along. All right, we've been sitting for a little bit, so just shake it out for me. All right, so my name is Evan. Repeat after me. My name is Evan.
My name is Evan.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. Now, arms up. So this is a form of Qigong, which is Chinese energy medicine, and just shake a little bit. So as I'm doing this, I'm moving the lymphatics. Who knows what the lymphatics are? Lymphatic system, raise your hands. Okay, well, the lymphatic system is the detoxification system of the body. So when we sit for long periods of time, blood gets stagnant. The lymph system gets stagnant, and so does our brain. All right, so we're just gonna move that. All right. Who's feeling a little bit juicy? Who's feeling juicy right now? All right. You know, it's very interesting. I started reflecting as I listened to the panel of speakers, and I got emotional. And the reason why I got emotional is because I have two beautiful daughters. And to see the challenges that women in the workforce have to face upsets me. That's number one. Number two is, they all talked about pain to purpose, right? Trauma to triumph. So, Kinetic Rehab and Spine, which is my first business, we started 23 years ago. Recently, we created a medical group called New Vasera. So sometimes you get confused. What am I talking about? Right? And the reason why is this. 2011, everybody can sit down now. And how do you feel differently right now? Do you feel little tingles? Do you feel a little bit different? Who feels a little bit different? All right, so how do you feel differently now? More energized. Do you feel more alert? All right, who feels a little bit happier? I mean, not to say that we were happy before, but you just feel different, right? And it's just through movement. So we all know what we need to do in life. Who knows that self-care is important? All right, who practices it on a routine basis every single day? Not everybody. We all do this. You know, I know better, right? I teach this, I practice this, right? Today is my 24-hour fast. Yes, I fast for 24 hours, 3 days a week. It's part of my longevity plan. Right? But I wasn't always like this. Let me just tell you a little bit of a story backdrop. Some of you already know my story. I know Stacy and I, we grew up together. Stacy, stand up, wave to everybody. Just in there. We grew up together. So if you want to know how I partied in college, just speak to her. But in 2011, my wife passed away. And I, at that point in time, I was, you can only imagine, devastated. But I committed myself, she died of stage 4 lung cancer. So I committed myself to finding natural ways that I could help prevent disease. So I went down this rabbit hole of studying from some of the pioneers in natural medicine. I was a doctor of Chinese medicine. I was a physical therapist at that time. And then fast forward a year later, I met the woman of my dreams. She pulled me back together again. We started building family. She got pregnant, we had twins. One of my twins died in my arms. And we talked about pain and purpose, right? And then again, I'm like, you know what? I need to change again. So, and you guys could imagine this, because we've all had pain in our lives. We've all have overcome. Because if we didn't have any challenges, we would not be where we are today, right? And so my intention today is to not only educate you, even though I think I'm learning more from you than I could ever teach you, I want to teach you a couple of cool strategies like lymphatic drainage work, right? The shaking that we could do. And I suggest you doing that at work, right? And so my business evolved because I hit lids. There's only so much that I could do to serve people as a physical therapist and acupuncturist. So a year ago, I started going down the rabbit hole of how do I merge with a hospital to add medical services to my practice? And then what services would I add to that practice to be able to serve more people? And that's what I'm going to go in today. So I want to teach you a few strategies today, but then also educate you about a disease that not many people have heard of, but it's very problematic, and 60 to 80% of us have it in this room, and we don't even know we have it. All right, who's with me on this one? So I want you guys just to participate. And we all know what we need to do for self-love or self-care, right? And being self-care is not being selfish, right? Just remember that. Being being self-care does not mean that you're selfish. Who's ever been on a plane before? All right, and what do they say in the plane? The plane starts going down, where do you put the oxygen first? On yourself. And I know as women, I used to be, no, my wife, she's a superhero. She's my absolute superhero. I don't know how she gets half the stuff she gets done in a day. And her biggest challenge is not that she doesn't have time, she doesn't think she has time to take care of herself. And that frustrates me. And I, as a man, cannot fully understand that because I'm a man, right? And there's limitations I have in my mental faculties that I will never comprehend how a woman feels in this environment. Right? No matter how much my wife explains to me, I would never fully understand. So I can't expect to understand where you guys are right now, but what I can do is just teach you a couple different techniques and strategies to maybe drop a little pebble in your quantum field so that you start making changes in your life. Is that cool? All right. So we do understand that there's about 65,000 thoughts that come through us on a daily basis. And of those thoughts, about 46,000 of those thoughts are negative thoughts. They're known as automatic negative thoughts. Now, who in this room can think of somebody that bothered them, did something, bullied them 20, 30 years ago? Think about somebody right now. All right. If not, is there something that happened to you last week or 2 weeks ago that when you think about it now, you get a visceral response? All right, so think about this. We're the only creature on the planet that can think about something that happened to us yesterday and have an impact on our lives today. The only creature on the planet. Deers in the wild, they get chased by a mountain lion, and then what happens? They escape, right? It's always good to be not the slowest, but the second slowest, because the slowest always gets eaten, right? And so a deer in the wild would go, they would escape, they'd go back, and they would sit down and start eating or drinking or foraging, right? That's how wild was created, or nature has been created. Humans are the only ones that have a frontal lobe. This is this big, massive brain in the front. And we can think about the past and create anxiety, right? We can think about the future and create worry. Who is worried about doing something right after this right now? Right? Right? We're thinking about what we have to do next. And if you're a woman like my wife is, she's worried about not just today, but tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And I'm sitting there, I come home, and I'm like, oh man, today was just exhausting. Meanwhile, the kids are screaming. They're like, oh, this person did this, and this. And my wife's like, man, today was a long day. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. And all I do is go to work and treat patients, right? But she had to manage the whole entire house, take care of the kids, prepare food, and I really cannot understand because I'm a man, right? Who can relate to that? Who's married in this room and have men that you have to leave notes or sticky notes out to take the garbage out twice a week, right? Every week, the garbage goes out on Tuesday, Friday, and recycles on Monday. Guess who forgets every single week? Probably her husband, right? My wife is amazing. She leaves notes everywhere for me. Don't forget, the night before she does that, right? So my point is this. We're the only creature on the planet that can think about something in the past or the future that creates a visceral response. Now, why does this happen? So, here's a little story. A week ago today, I broke my foot. I'm walking pretty good, right? A week ago today, I broke my foot because I was being chased by a styrofoam rocket. My 6-year-old was chasing me with a styrofoam rocket at the house, and I ran into a threshold of a door. Needless to say, the vulgarity that came out of the mouth at that time, and I almost passed out. It's called a vasovagal response. So a stress response caused me to almost pass out. So 2 days ago, my 3-year-old daughter fell down the stairs. I ran down the stairs, jumped down the flight of stairs. I had a broken foot. I didn't feel one thing. Isn't it phenomenal how the body is wired? Under a stress response, we produce hormones that block pain. So the threat of my daughter superseded my threat of my foot. Right? You've all heard of the woman that picked up a car because their child was underneath the car, right? The threat of my foot had no bearing on the care for my child. You can relate, right? So we have the innate ability in our brains and our nervous system. This is how we're hardwired. Now, our brain is about 2.5 million years old, and it's not wired to make us happy, right? It's only wired for survival. That's all it is. We have a brain that's so dumb that in a threat situation, we either freeze or it's actually 3 Fs, I can't say the third F, but we freeze, or we go into a fight or flight response. I had a very good friend that we grew up with. She was sexually assaulted about 15 years ago, and she froze. And people judged her for freezing. But that's part of the immune system. That's the nervous system. You either fight or freeze or flight. You either run or you freeze. But that's how the brain and nervous system is wired. Under stressful responses, blood flow leaves the frontal lobe, which is the analytical brain, and it goes to what's known as the reptilian brain. Our brain is only wired for survival. That's it. And procreation. That's it. So we got to work on a daily basis to make us happy. Does that make sense? So what we tell ourselves on a routine basis will determine how we think and how we feel. So here's another example. Our thoughts are the language of the mind, but our feelings are the language of the body. So what we think, we feel. And under a stress response, what happens to your heart rate? Does it go up or down? Goes up. What happens to your blood pressure? Goes up or down? Goes up. Okay. So there's a hormone that's released under stress called adrenaline that causes that to happen. Now, we also need a fuel source under stress. And the brain and body work best on sugars as a fuel source. So the liver's programmed to release glycogen into the bloodstream so we have fuel to be able to run away. Does that make sense? And what happens to our immune system? Do you think our immune system gets suppressed, or do you think it becomes more elevated? It gets suppressed, right? So if we have a cold or a flu, who's ever been sick before, and one of your children put their hand on the stove, but you have 103 fever up in your room, do you think your body cares about that fever at that moment? No. The immune system gets suppressed when we're under a stress response. So guess what it is labeled? The top 3 diseases on the planet. And back in the 1950s and 60s, an endocrinologist named Dr. Hans Selye found that stress is the #1 cause of disease on the planet. Cardiovascular disease is #1. Under a stress response, what happens to the heart rate? Goes up. What happens to blood pressure? Goes up. Now, here's another interesting fun fact. Guess what happens to our lipid profile in our blood? Which one's the good cholesterol? HDL. Which one's the bad cholesterol? Allegedly. But it's not good or bad, right? It's just information. LDL levels go up. Do you know why LDL goes up under stress? Can I borrow you for a sec? Come on up. All right, she's going to stab me. Metaphorically, that is. So stab me. Okay, she stabs me under a stress response. You can sit down, that's all I wanted. Yeah, I just wanted to embarrass her. All right, round of applause for Stacy. So under a stress response, the reason why a lipid profile changes is so we don't bleed out. So in the wild, think about this, we were hunter-gatherers up until about 10,000 years ago. All right, we've been on the planet for how many millions of years, right? And so our bodies are designed in such a way for survival. So if I'm in the wild and I get attacked, I don't want to bleed out to death. If I have a broken ankle and I'm in the wild, I'm going to walk on that broken ankle because I need to survive. Does that make sense? So cholesterol goes up, blood pressure goes up, we also said heart rate goes up, and that's cardiovascular disease. Now, we've talked about the immune system becoming compromised, right? Immune system becomes suppressed. So under stress response, what's a disease that you guys could think of in this room that may be contributed to the immune system being weak? How about cancer? So when we're under stress, cancer proliferates. Now what about diabetes? Third cause. Our sugars have to go up as a fuel source. Right? So under stress, mass amounts of glycogen is shunted from the organs and goes right out to the muscles so you can run away. So what Dr. Hans Selye found, I love this name, it's the acronym GAS, General Adaptive Syndrome. I'm a guy, so I'm like GAS. If you have any sons, anybody have sons in the room, right? GAS, right? So General Adaptation Syndrome, what he found is that there's 4 phases, there's 3 phases up there. The fourth phase is actually cell death. So isn't that interesting? How we as creatures can think about an event that happened to us 20 years ago by some people, like some people we grew up with. I can still think about them sometimes. I had to work through this. That created a visceral response. So if we're thinking in the future or thinking in the past and we're not present, we're creating a massive stress response inside our bodies. Does that make sense? So my question to you is this. If every day about 80% of our thoughts that we wake up on a daily basis are the same thoughts we had yesterday, how can we ever expect the future to change for us? So if we think the same thoughts and feel the same way we did yesterday, how can we ever change in the future? Right? So then how do we change that? Who wants to learn? You guys want to learn how to change this? All right, so how much time do we have? Oh, great. My 3-day presentation is only 30 minutes long. Okay, here we go. So everybody, I want you to pick one stressor that I want you to focus on. Pick one stressor, and then I want you to quantify that stressor on a 0 to 10 scale. Thank you so much. So quantify the stressor. It could be a person, place, thing, dung beetle, I don't care what it is. Think about one stressor. All right, everybody has it? Everybody put your hands up. You got a stressor, all right. So we're gonna start doing some tapping. Now, who's ever heard of tapping? All right, so I simplified the tapping, all right? So you guys, do me a favor, just tap with me. So I want you to just think about that stressor. Now, as you're thinking about this stressor, just tap. And what we're doing is we're tapping on the heart. And I won't have time to explain this in the future, unless you bring us into your school, which we've done about 10 school districts already, teaching teachers how to do this. And then now we're gonna massage the ears. And as we're massaging the ears, I want you guys to swallow. So now we're activating the vagus nerve. It's not on there. Now as we're swallowing, we're activating the vagus nerve, which is the parasympathetic branch. Swallow a few times. And then from here, we're gonna tap. Forehead to the back of the head. Forehead to the back of the head. Now do me a favor, as we're doing this, take a deep breath in. Exhale. Okay. Now, I feel better, thank you. If that didn't work for anybody else, I feel really good about this. Now, how do you guys feel differently after that? When you think about that stressor, say it was a 10, did it go down a little bit? Raise your hand if it went down a little bit. It's good, most of us went down. All right, so who remembers how to do this at home? So there's only 3 areas. What are the 3? Let's call it out. Chest. Sternum, yes, chest, sternum, for about 20, 30 seconds. What's the next one? Ears. Ears. And you swallow at the same time. And then what's the third one? Head. Okay, I'm gonna point to areas in my body. What is this? This? Ears. This? 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 Perfect. All right, it's only 3. Simple. Right? Even a man could do this. All right? It is so simple. And there are tapping strategies that are much more in depth, but I found that this is more compliant and it's easier to do, and it takes 60 seconds to do it. All right? So whenever you have a stressor, and sometimes I forget to do this, just go into the state, and I'm happy you're yawning. This is good. That's a parasympathetic response. I love it. And once you just calm down a little bit, but you can practice this at home. All right. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, remember how we talked about thoughts create a feeling, right? So who's ever done any kind of mental rehearsal for a thing that they want? All right, so who's ever heard of The Secret? Joe Dispenza. All right, these guys talk about creating the future as if. Feeling the feeling before it even happens. So to carry on with this tapping, the next step would be to actually feel the feeling as if what you want to get accomplished already achieved. It's already done. But feel that feeling of gratitude. Okay? But it has to be the feeling. Most people visualize without feeling as if it's already happened. Does that sound cool? So what's step number 1? And there's 3 areas for step number 1. Step number 2 is what? Feel the feeling as if. Feel the feeling. Who wants to feel that before we go into the next topic? Do you guys want to try it? You want to experiment it? Okay. So this is called gamma brainwaves. Who's ever heard of gamma brainwaves? Gamma brainwaves allows us to get the left and right brain to communicate with each other, which accelerates the healing response inside of us. So do me a favor, cross your legs, unless you guys' legs are crossed. Now take your hands like this, and then I want you to curl the hands under. Yeah, so we do this, thumbs down, curl under, and then just close your eyes for a second, and put a little smile on your face. And as you have the smile on your face, I want you to feel your heart. And I want you to feel the feeling of gratitude inside your heart. And feel maybe a person you love or people that you love. I want you to feel that feeling right now in the heart space. And as you're feeling that feeling of gratitude, if you can't feel that feeling, think, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Just by using the words thank you, thank you, thank you, you start creating that feeling. And as you feel this feeling, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now pick one thing you want to work on. It might be a promotion. It might be a vacation. It might be weight loss. It might be health. And I want you to feel the feeling as if it's already been achieved. And maybe celebrating with a loved one, jumping up and down. Feel that feeling. If it's weight loss, you see yourself in the mirror as if you're at that ideal weight, looking at this scale, or it might be a medical condition, and you go to the doctor, and they say, congratulations, you're cured. Good, feel that feeling. Feel that feeling of gratitude. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, now take a deep breath in. And then come out and cross your arms. How'd that feel? That feel good? And the best time to do this visualization, I love how Dr. Katic, she talked about before the world wakes up in the morning. There's something to that because we're in a state of theta brainwave, which is hypnotic state, first thing in the morning when you wake up and first thing before we go to bed at night. And so those are the times, if we reprogram our brain and those time periods, we can actually reprogram our whole entire emotional outlook on that day. So before you go to bed at night, do this exercise and feel the feeling as if you already accomplished what you want to get accomplished for that next day. Does that make sense? Now, with the limited time I have left, there's something I want to talk to you guys about, and it's a pretty big issue for teachers and nurses. And it's called chronic venous insufficiency. Have you guys ever heard of chronic venous insufficiency? All right, so I want everybody in this room to grab your thumb. And I want you to squeeze your thumb. And as you squeeze your thumb as I'm talking, make sure you can see your thumb tip though. I want you looking at your thumb as we're talking. And do you notice that your thumb starts changing color? All right, so who knows we have a heart? All right. The heart's function is to pump blood. And the heart pumps blood throughout every system inside the body. But the venous system does what with the blood? It brings it back up towards the heart. And it brings deoxygenated blood back up towards the heart. Now, if we have veins or valves inside the leg, now look at your finger. How's it looking? What color is it now? Is it turning purple? Yeah? Is it turning purple? So what happens over time when we have lack of blood flow to an area? Who's ever heard of frostbite? Right? So over time, what happens is blood flow gets stagnant. When the veins inside the legs become dysfunctional, blood flow back up towards the heart becomes dysfunctional. Who here in this room sometimes gets fatigued? Now, in Chinese medicine, we call that spleen qi deficiency. Who in this room sometimes may have some heavy legs? And you're like, you know what? Or leg fatigue, right? Or restless legs at night. or ankle starts swelling, or you have varicose veins, or spider veins, right? This is a disease that affects a lot of people, and it can be fatal over time. That's why it's so important to bring it to your attention. And this is the reason why there's a Chinese proverb that states that to treat disease after it's already been manifested is like digging a well after you're already thirsty, or building weapons after the war has already begun. So if we could actually assess your veins now, that could be affecting you in 10, 20, 30 years down the road, that could actually be a fatal disease. Wouldn't you guys be interested in learning more about that? Because it's just an ultrasound machine. You do ultrasound assessments of your veins. Now, over time, this vein disease progresses. If you look, prevalence is over the age of 40, I'm over 40, and this applies to both men and women. 60 to 80% of the population have it. But they just think that it's nothing. But it actually progresses. Let me show you this. To this. How many of you guys had parents that had discoloration of their calves or shins, or hair loss? Now, and they had this cut on their calf or the shins that just wouldn't heal. Who's seen that? Because I see this clinically. And I didn't really understand the importance of this, the relevance of this, because that's actually a venous insufficiency issue that happens over time. So leg swelling is the first indication. Varicose veins is a perfect indication of this. And in Chinese medicine, the kidneys correspond to the legs, and kidneys correspond to fear in Chinese medicine. And so when I look at the body, I'm looking at it always from a 3D perspective. And if we could prevent disease that could manifest in 5 to 10 years by doing simple ultrasounds, isn't that a good thing? If you don't get ultrasound by us, but definitely see somebody that could do an assessment of your venous system. Extremely important. Because this could progress over time, and it creates venous ulcers. You guys tracking with me? And this is something that we want to partner up with in the school systems with the nursing staff, so we can do screens on teachers. And if you're interested in us coming to your schools to do a screen on your teachers through the nursing staff, speak to Janelle. Where's Janelle? There's Janelle. All right. We've been into multiple school systems doing teacher appreciation events where we do massages, right, for stress reduction. But this is another layer. This is medical. And I would highly encourage everybody to get their veins checked. It doesn't have to be with us, but start looking at your veins. We look at the cardiovascular system. So we look at the hearts. We look at the colon through colonoscopy. You guys get pap smears, but nobody's really assessing their veins. Right? Who's ever had an ultrasound of their veins before? Over the age of 40, everybody should have this done. Because the procedures are very simple. There's conservative methods, like I'm wearing compression stockings, because I have valve issues as well in my legs, right? And there's conservative measures you could do. So do yourself a favor, get your veins assessed. All right, with the little time I have left, is there any Q&A questions that you guys have for me?
Do you just ask your regular doctor for veins, or does that take another
That's a great question. It's another doctor. Yeah, so you need to find a physician that specializes in veins. Like we have an MD in our staff who's been doing it for 20 years. The guy does more vein procedures than anybody else I've ever came across. He's in our office on Fridays. And so he'll do the ultrasound and talk to you. Yeah, and if we come to the school systems, it'd be a free gift we give to the community in the school systems, very similar to what we've done in the past with the appreciation events. Where we set time with the nursing staff, and we do it out of the nursing office. And we come in for a quick pre-screen to see if you have a vein that's dysfunctional. And then we could do a more thorough exam at a later date. Yeah, so we do it at our office. Everybody take down my cell phone number. I'm yours. Just text me. My cell phone number is 201 248 5854. 201 248 5854. That's my personal cell phone, guys. I'm here to serve you and here to help you. Just let me know how I can help you. If you have questions regarding, hey, would acupuncture help me with this? Would acupuncture help me with my husband's back issues? Would acupuncture help me with this? And If you don't live in my demographics, I'll find somebody to help you. Janelle and I, we're here to serve you guys. If you have any questions, just text me. All right. On your table, you'll see something. It's called the symptom survey from New Vasra. Do you guys see it?
There wasn't enough for the tables.
All right. Feel free to fill that out. You could take a picture and send it back to me if we don't have time today, and we could assess the veins together. All right, guys. Thank everybody for everything. I really appreciate everything you do.